I was recently contacted by a customer who I've done some work for, and at first I thought they may have had an issue with a trimmer that I just worked on for them, but to my surprise, that was not the case. Turns out they had some equipment for me to have for free, which was a very nice gesture, but it's what they did after that that had me a bit concerned, and I thought to myself, this has to stop, otherwise I don't see my services lasting much longer. In today's video, we take a look at this Troy-Bilt lawnmower, and the problem is that I just got this mower from a good friend who in turn got it free from their next door neighbor. I wish I could have neighbors like this, but then again, we don't get what we want, so just tough it out and maybe someday we'll win the lottery, or better yet, win it big at the casino. Now, I may have already fixed this mower in a different video, so if you want to see that video, there should be a link to it at the top of the screen or at the end of this video. But before I fixed it, I had to give it a quick cleaning, that way I don't get dirt in places like inside the carb, the fuel tank, or even inside the engine. Now, if the link is not visible, it just means it's still cooking and it'll be done pretty soon, so just hang on tight, or your ad blocker is keeping it from showing up. Now, while I clean this mower, I'm going to talk about something that I've never talked about before, and you might think I'm being obtuse, but once I explain my position, I think you'll see it my way. And if you don't see it my way, that's okay too. I just appreciate that you're sticking around to hear me out. So the issue is that sometimes I'll get stuff to work on from people I know or who I've done work for, but they think that I should drop whatever it is I'm doing to go out of my way to receive their gratitude. But is that a real issue, or am I perceiving their efforts as something else that may not be helpful to me? I know this sounds like a strange problem to have, but hear me out for the next couple of minutes while I give several examples, and then you can pass judgment. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me, just listen and see if it makes sense and how disrupting it is to my life. So the key word here is disrupting, and just to clarify, the definition of the word is something that interrupts an event, activity, process, or schedule. And in this situation, I would also like to add on that the disruption was not asked for and was completely on the part of the other person. I did not ask for their help. Now, don't get me wrong, I really appreciate the gesture from these people, it's just how the situation ends up that I have an issue with. Like I said, I know it sounds like I'm being weird or odd about the whole situation, but wait until you hear the examples and you might just see it my way. So the first example comes from one of my longtime and most active customers. If you recall, they were the ones who pulled up in the van with several mowers, blowers, and trimmers, thinking that I should have all of them at once out of convenience. Well, this time they had called me right after I got home from a long 12-hour shift from my job when I received a call from them. I answered the phone mainly out of curiosity, and what they had to say was simply amazing. They said they had more stuff they needed me to work on, and they were already on the way to the warehouse to drop it off. I was absolutely stunned by this statement. I had no idea they were going to do this. There was no mention of anything like this happening leading up to this event, but that's not the worst of it. They then asked me when I could get them done by. I haven't even seen them yet. How can I even guess as to when I can get them done? So here's what I told them. I said that I was not in a position to take any work in at the moment and that they should take all the stuff back home until I'm ready for them. And only after I see them will I be able to make a guess as to when I could get them done by. So as you can expect, they didn't understand why I was being like this and said they thought that I would appreciate the work they were bringing to me. I then told them that I did appreciate it, but I've already had a schedule planned for the rest of the day and even the rest of the week because of the extended work schedule. They said that they understood and that they'll take the stuff back home and wait for me to contact them about bringing what they had over. That way we can come up with a schedule on what to repair first and what we can put on the back burner. Now, I did try to explain to them that this was just a hobby and that I have a schedule that's difficult to rearrange for unexpected work. Luckily, later that week, we met up and I took all they had and came up with a schedule and got everything fixed and out the door. And fortunately, after this whole experience, they would then call me ahead of time asking what my schedule looked like and if I could take on any more work. And every time we meet up after that, I thank them for being understanding, and I think it helped them out as well as far as getting stuff fixed so that they could do what they needed with them. So the next example has to do with all the coworkers at my giant facility I spend most of my waking hours at. Now, without fail, it would typically happen on a Monday. Someone would come up to me and say,
"Hey, I've got this trimmer, mower, or blower that I tried to use last week and I couldn't get it started. Could you fix it for me?"
And of course, like a fool, I would say yes, and I told them that I really appreciated the offer. That wasn't until I found out the truth of the matter. So it turns out they already had the machine in their vehicle thinking that it would take it that day without any notice. So I don't see the issue just yet. Well, don't worry, I'm getting to the good part. Remember, I work in a building that has about 1,000 people in it at any one time. So what sometimes happens is that I just won't get one person that does this to me on a Monday, but sometimes multiple people will do this as well. That means I might be approached by several people on a Monday who need help but have also brought their piece of equipment with them in their vehicles right then and there in hopes that I'll take it that day. So I've got a serious question for you. How many blowers, mowers, and trimmers can you put in a 4-door sedan because you didn't know you were going to get several machines that day? Now, if I had known about this whole situation, I would have brought the truck or the cargo van, but instead I took the Econobox to work that day. So what happens sometimes is that I'll have to turn people away and ask them to bring their stuff back the next day because I didn't have room for everyone's stuff, which, if you couldn't guess, sometimes doesn't go over very well. Now, luckily, most were understanding to my situation, but I did have a few that found it difficult to understand. Needless to say, those that did not understand would always find me to be unavailable from that time on. So was it really all that bad? Not really, but it puts me in a terrible situation to lose some customers, and not only that, but I do it more to help people than to make a buck. So this example wasn't as disruptive as the other one, but it's still not ideal, at least for me, and it could have also affected other people as well. So how would I change it to make it any better? Simple. Come Monday, make contact with me, tell me your situation, and then we can make plans to get it fixed, or we'll come up with a different one. But whatever you do, please don't load up your truck or your car and head to work because you never know, I might just not be in on that Monday. Just for your information, if there was any day that I would call into work saying that I wasn't feeling it that day, it would be a Monday. Besides, if you think you can tell me at 5 o'clock on a Friday that I need to come in on Saturday all day and maybe part of Sunday to work because my TPS reports weren't up to date according to the new memo, don't expect me in on Monday. And if you need me, I'll be at Chotchkie's. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not all terrible and most seem to get it, but what happens when they don't get it? What then? So in the next example, I had a customer who had already made plans to meet up with me, and at that point, everything had already been fixed and was done. So I had their mower in the back of my car and I was waiting at the gas station because it was convenient for us to meet up this way versus any other option. They would only have to drive a few miles from their home to get to the gas station, which was on my way home from work. It was a very nice arrangement, so when does it all go wrong? Now, I was at work earlier that day and I think it was about 2 hours before I had to leave work when I made contact with them to remind them that the meetup was in 2 hours, which they responded with a yes. Well, as you may have guessed it, 2 hours later, I'm sitting at the gas station and waiting for them to arrive, trying to stay cool since it was summertime. So 10 minutes after the scheduled time went by and no one has showed up. 10 more additional minutes go by and now I'm a bit worried. I had a lot planned after I got home and these 20 minutes were cutting into those plans. So after 5 more minutes, I then called them only to find out that they had forgotten about our plans. I then had to wait for another 15 minutes before they finally showed up. So here's the best part, they didn't even apologize to me about making me wait. I'm pretty sure you know what the service history was after this little incident. Yep, you guessed it, it was history because there was no more work for this person. Now you might be saying to yourself,
Hey, aren't you being a bit hard on someone who just forgot about the plans, or maybe they were preoccupied with something else?
The answer is yes. Yes, I am being hard on them, but there's a reason though. The first time is an indicator of things to come, and if you let it, it will happen again. So how many times do you want to be jerked around? Are you using the 3 strikes and you're out rule, or is it until you can't take it anymore? Now, I think most people can tell when someone is playing you for a fool and when someone is genuinely sorry for wasting your time. Hey, I understand, life happens and you can't plan for everything, but you can make up for it by being apologetic and showing some understanding and being human. And if you can't do it or you don't want to do it, that's perfectly fine with me. You just won't have to worry about doing it to me ever again, so we're all good. So would this person ever get a chance to redeem themselves? Absolutely they can, but come on, let's be honest here. Do you really think that's going to happen? Are they going to be able to change their ways? Now, if you said yes, then I'd like to think that you represent the best part of humanity, which I think is hope. But as for me, I'll try to keep in mind that people will always be people, and changing someone's personality or behavior is very tough to do, if not impossible, not at least without changing someone's brain chemistry. Now, I do feel for those that can't seem to get past their own issues that keep them from being a somewhat productive person. But then again, I'm really not the right person to do any sort of judging on a person's character. That means I'm going to move on to the last and final example, which I think is the best one, at least so far. The last example comes from an uncle that for some reason has made it their mission to try and get me as much work as possible, which isn't a bad thing at all, or am I wrong? What they were doing was reaching out to their neighbors, friends, and coworkers and finding out if they had any sort of equipment that needed fixing because they knew someone who can get it done for a very fair price. It seems like every month or so they would make contact and say, hey, I've got something for you, and depending upon what I had going on, I'd have to go over and get it. So when does it all go wrong this time? Now, at that time, it was very hectic with a lot going on at work and outside of work when they yet again, and without asking, said they had some stuff to work on. I then told them that's great, just get them ready and I'll come by and come get them, but the timing couldn't have been any worse. I wouldn't be able to get to them for at least 3 days because of prior arrangements. That's when they made contact yet again asking why I hadn't come over. I then let them know that I was planning on coming over, which was going to be the very next day. I then had to push aside my other planned projects to work on the stuff that I was surprised with, and by the end of the weekend it was all done, and then the following day I returned the items, but the damage was already done. Because to get the items done, I had to push back a report I needed to make with my boss by a day, and not only that, but the projects I had planned to work on were also pushed back by another week, just to take care of stuff that was not planned for. So why didn't I just say, no, I can't work on them, you'll have to wait in line? The answer is simple, because they're family. I don't think I have to say more than that. Letting someone down at work is one thing, I barely know them, but when you're related to them, it's a bit more difficult, at least for me. I had to stop whatever it was I was working on or planning on working on just to go get the stuff from them. I just don't know why they were so insistent. But I do think I have at least one idea as to why they were being so persistent. The first one is that they were simply not aware of what all I have to do in a day or even at nighttime. They must think that I'm just sitting around drinking a beer and just contemplating why life is so hard and why I don't have anything to do. And when they contact me that I don't have anything better to do except drive over to their house and change my plans to accommodate theirs. I really should just give them access to my day planner, that way it'll be a lot easier for them to make my plans for me instead of having me do it. Now, am I being a bit harsh to them? And the answer is, of course I am, but I do think I have a choice and a right to do so, otherwise, what's the point in waking up and having to make choices throughout the day? Okay, let's turn this conversation around before it gets too serious. What I might have to do is start telling people that this is a bad time and I can't get to it anytime soon. Maybe that'll be enough so that I don't have to overshare what's going on with my free time, even the tiny amount that I have right now. But it's hard to let someone down who's only trying to help you out, so hopefully you can see where I'm coming from. Like I said before, you don't have to agree with me, all you have to do is hear me out and respect your choice if you don't. So my question is, do you think I'm right in getting upset when other people think their time and stuff is more important than what's going on in my own life? I know that I'm in a service role, but does that mean they get to tell me how to live my life? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.